Good day. So today we are going to be looking at beginner's guide to web development, focusing on HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. So starting with HTML basics, what is markup language? Is the structure of web pages. It's what provides the structure for a web page. So when every web page you go to, the building blocks of every one of them, it's HTML, except if they are doing uh, Canvas, WebAssembly stuff, other stuff. But HTML is the building block of most web pages you will see, and it's made up of simple elements and tags. So, for example, now this is a basic HTML structure. You can see the doc type HTML, which tells the browser this is the version of HTML you want to use. So, it's a tree. Let me not use that example. So you can say HTML wraps script tags, style tags, the title, the description, a lot of things. That's what you put in the head. Then the body is everything you see on the web page. So once I open a web page, everything I see here is the body. And everything here is the title. So let's look at common HTML elements you see day to day. We have the H1, which is the header tag. So let's create an index.html file. So if you are using VS Code, you can just type in exclamation mark and tab. So it writes all this for you. So now, let's explain everything here because you can see some other things came in. First of all, we have this. This is what we use to set the language. So the browser knows, okay, everything here is English. Whether it's somebody writes something in Japanese there, but some browsers are smart enough to, okay, if this part is Japanese, let me change it to Japan to English. But this sets the language of the default language of the page. Then we set the character set. So UTF-8 is the encoding for every string, every character on the page. That's the meta tag. Another meta tag, this one sets the viewports of the page. So for example now, media queries, if this stuff is not here, if we don't have it, media queries won't work. So because the browser does not know what is your width, the width of the browser we are using, it does not know. So if I set all the media queries in the world, it does not know where it's starting from and where it's ending for this HTML file. So it does not know how it. So now we can now copy the path to this file. Go to our browser and open it there. Now we can see hello world is there. We can add an H2 so we can see the difference between two of them. We save and refresh. So you can see the difference in sizes between both of them. So this is like your what you want your users to see first, the H1 about a page. So that's why they'll tell you you should only have one H1 per page. So what you want your users, okay, once they see this thing, they understand what is happening here. That's your H1. That should be your H1. So moving on, let's close that. We have the lists. So we have both unordered list and ordered list. So the difference between them is just the unordered list will show dots because we have list items inside both of them. So unordered lists will show as, let's save and refresh again, will show with this dot dot. But ordered lists will come with, let's copy, because the only difference between both lists is OL and UL. So once we use OL, we'll see the difference between both of them now. It's just 1 and 2. Just OL, UL. That's just the difference. This one now, you can use it when you want to write list of, maybe you want to have an order list with numbers and everything, blah, 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 all that. But the most common one will be UL on ordered list. Most people even use it for nav bars. So when you have a nav bar that you want to arrange multiple things together, they are together but they are not really together. So you just use this unordered list to, like, okay, these are the nav items, then they should be in this list. So we group them together in a place. So that's the point of it. We have the image. Image takes in, okay, I don't have an image, so let me just explain it. So it takes in a source. So the way I copied that part for a picture, for something now, let me even take a picture from here. So I can come here, copy. Let's see if I copy the actual. I don't know what I copied. If I copy the parts, but Mark used to copy both. So if I do image, we pass in the source attribute. Every item, every element has an attribute. So it came in, but it came in with weird characters. This one now. Yeah, so we pass in the source, we pass in the alt. Not sure if this source will work because of these spaces there. Trying to see if we can escape them. So I think it should work now. Might have worked before, but who knows. So we can give it an alt screenshot. So let's save that and let's refresh and let's see. So it linked to the file, but the path we passed is wrong. Let me try without the escaping characters. Let's see if we get it to work just like that. Let's refresh again. It did not work because there is space in our. Another thing we can, let me give it a more reasonable name. The name to, so I can just come now, since I've given it a better name, that we can type in as a string. You also need to make sure you put the file type there. So if it's PNG, put the PNG. If it's JPEG, you put the JPEG. If it's web picture dot WP, whatever. So this is it. So you can see it. The image is there, but it's wide. It just, the image itself already has a defined width. So it just copies that width and puts it on our page. We also have other attributes like width. So we can set it, we can set the width to, I think we can pass in numbers instead of, okay, no, let's do 100 pixels, height of 100 too. I wrote 1000. So let me see that here. So now we have it in the 100 by 100 pixels size. Let's increase it to like 500. So you can just play around with these attributes to see what things will look like. But you can see because I gave it a defined distance, a defined width and height, we now have a compressed image. Like, why see the way it spells my image. So instead of defining, I can just define one part and make one auto. And that should make it. Well, there are some websites you enter, you see the way they compress some people's picture, and you'll be like, why are you spoiling pictures like this when you have something easier? You can just put auto and it will just set a definite, it will set the picture's width, height for the width that you've given it. So that's that. But some people just like giving themselves wahala. Then another important thing we'll also be doing, you also do with HTML is forms, because people want to log in is a form. People want to input information, do this, do that, a lot of things. You making a post on Facebook, you are filling a form. Posting a picture on Instagram, you are filling a form. So all these things are form, just in a different way. So there's no how you want to interact with a web page that you will not face forms. It might just be in a way that you will not really know that, okay, yeah, this is a form. So that's why they are also very important to understand how they work basically. So let's create a form. To have a form, you just use the form. That's the beauty of uh, HTML. Everything is defined. You will see there are let me not say, okay, let me say there are hundreds of elements. Some you might not even come across throughout your career, but they exist. So we put passing the input. Input is self-closing. That's why it has this. It's not like button that closes. Then we use this to close it. So it's self-closing. Inside is angle brackets. You put passing this um, backslash to close it. So now let's see what it looks like on our page. Refresh, see it, enter your name, and do James, and I press submit. It's going to refresh the page. That's the default stuff it's going to do. So the button, always make sure the button is inside the form. If the button is outside of the form, you are just deceiving yourself. But there are ways around it that you can. Well, it's just unnecessary, bro. In case there are times that the UI will be different. Maybe you have your button. You want to have your button at the top here. You want to have your button at the top here, and your form is down here. So there are ways you can just okay, once this person press this button, it will get every information you have passed here and submit it. So there are ways around that. So if your button is outside your form, you can find your way around that using JavaScript. So I think that's all for. There are still a lot. There's also the one that we do not touch. I do not put here, which is called a div. Div. You will see this, especially when you start working with any front-end framework. This div, if I open any site, you will see a lot of divs there. It's like, it's just a block. That's just what it is. It's a block. It does not really mean anything. You can take anything. So it's just a block. You can pass it a class, give it a class attribute. So now everything inside this div. Let's do, there's also style attribute. Let's do style, but instead of background, let's do border on. solid gray. So now you see it just affects the place I put the div in. So inside this block, everything is inside that div. We are already touching CSS now. So this style, this stuff I did here is CSS. Because that's where we are moving into. So now what is CSS? CSS means cascading style sheets. Cascading style sheets. So it's what controls the way the layout of your website. So for example now, if you give me this as your website, I'll be like, what is this? Even if I work with Microsoft Office, I will do a better design than this. So you can't give me this as your website, and this is the highest HTML can make your website look like. To make it look prettier or look more presentable, you need to use CSS. There are many ways to use CSS. There are multiple ways to use CSS. This is using CSS with the style attributes. We can also come and create a file here called style.css, and we have to link it because our HTML file now does not know where it is, does not know that it even exists. So we come here and we link it using the link tag. Can see how intuitive that is. Link, we pass the rel, which is style sheets, and we also pass the href. So why we are using an href here is because sometimes you can want to use a style that you posted. You can host your site, your style, the CSS in somewhere else, maybe in an Amazon S3 bucket. You can have it there, and you just link it directly to your file without having any issues. And it works. So now let's come here and let's select the container that we have. So to select that container that we declared here in a class, because it's a class. Oh no, let's start with what we can select first. So now first let's select our HTML. You can come here, HTML. Select it, just type in HTML. We have selected this HTML tag like that. So now let's go to dark mode. Background color. Let's use something let's use something very gray. So gray, just repeat your number. So let's see what you can use. 333. Let's see how dark that is. That's dark enough. But when you make your this thing dark, you also have to make your text white. So this would affect the background. Color would affect the text and every other thing we have. And it's going to trickle down. You know, like for example now, we only did this style for the HTML. We do not do it. HTML does not have any text inside. It's H1 that has text inside, H2 and all these ones that have text inside them. But that's why it's called cascading. What cascading means is that it's like waterfall. As they pour, it just they go down. So everything is just going down. If I if, if I just pour one thing at the head, it flows down to the tail. So that's what cascading means, and that's how it works here too. So you can see now the color white I made all the elements. All the elements now have that color of white, and our background is now the gray color we picked. So moving on. What else? What next? So that shows that we've linked our style to this. Now let's select something else. Let's select the container class. Select a class. We use the dot container. If I know how to spell. So dot container, we can now give it, okay, a width of 80 and margin 0 and auto. All this will do, it will make this box that we declared, that div that we give, this div, width of 80%. What is 80% of? 80% of our screen. So now this thing will contain 80% of our screen. Before it's containing 100% because it's just there. It's taking everything. But now that we've declared it to be 80%, the browser will just calculate it. Okay, your screen is 600 pixels. What's 80% of 600 pixels? That's that box width. So let's save it. I don't think we saved it. And now let's refresh. Now you can see it has brought it together, and it kept it at the center. Why? Because we also did this margin 0 and auto. The way this is a shorthand property. So margin 0. Once you declare only 2, this one goes for top and bottom. So top and bottom of 0. Auto will now be left and right. That's just how CSS is. So top and bottom, left and right. I think if you want to also do it, this will be top. Then you have, I think, left or right, I don't know. Let's do 20 pixels. You can do 10 pixels, and you can do 0. So this will be top, this will be bottom, this will be left, and this will be right. So let's save. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah. So the right has 20, left has 10 pixels. So let's go back to what we had before. I don't like the way that one looks like. But this auto now, the browser calculates it by itself. I do not need to do anything. It just calculates, okay, oh, I've given this box 80%. So what should I do with the remaining 20%? Give it margin. That's all I did. That's all I told the browser. Then the browser now calculates, okay, I have to share this thing between two of you. Because it's two of you that needs the margin. So how can I share this remaining 20% between two of you? And it calculates that. So even if I reduce my width, screen width, it's still calculating it by itself. I don't need to do anything extra. So that's the beauty of not using very definite properties. Like you don't use, I've forgotten the name, the English to use to describe, but you don't use very strong. If I had used like 50 pixels now, I have to start running media queries to make it responsive. That okay, when it's smaller, change it to this. When it's bigger, change it to that. So you can use things like auto, flexbox, a lot of other techniques like that to reduce the amount of media queries you have to write. So to make your website look more nice. Nice. So now I mentioned flexbox. What is flexbox? Flexbox is just a way to like define your align your elements. There's also something called grid, but let's not touch grid. Grid is more complex than flexbox. Is very easy to understand, to visualize. Grid, you have to think about what you want to use it for first before you even start doing anything. But with flexbox, I just come display flex, and that's all. Let's see the difference it did. See, it kept everything side by side. I can now give them space between each other using gap and set a gap of 20 pixels. So each item now will now have 20 pixels, 20 pixels, 20 pixels between each other. And like that. And that's not even all. I can even come here and do justify content. Like this AI already knows what I need. You can see it's already at the center. Like this too. So the same thing with the auto that we used outside here too. So this one, if I reduce the width, you can see that the space here reduce it first before I start compressing my text. Now it can start compressing my, because we've got it to the end back. You can see now it's at the edge back again. Because what we use, and it's just in 2 lines too. So I can make it take as much space as it needs, and when I don't have space for it, it can start doing whatever it wants to do. So now let's do that. Okay, let me see what is our width here when it starts getting worse. I think the next thing, so let's do small media query. Let me make it big back. So let's get our width when it start getting compressed. So it's around, let's say 750, 760. So I can come in here in my CSS, where's my, okay, and add a media query. That's okay, at media, very like CSS and this, all you just need is to cram as much syntax as possible and you're fine. But that's the beauty of Tailwind and using all these tools. So like this now, this all these tools, Tailwind, there's what a Tailwind extension that you can just use. So you just think about what you want to write. Okay, width of this shows you what it is and what it does. All those kind of that's why Tailwind is now like very popular now, because you don't need to cram everything like this. See how many things you have to write just to do this, to do that, to do this. So let's move on. But I don't want 768. I want 6. I think it was 650 we calculated then. I mean, what? Can't remember. Okay, I think we did around. Let's do 780. 780. So once, what this means is that as long as we are less than 780 pixels, make this flex direction to be column. Okay, I forgot to mention also that here flex direction by default, once you make something display flex, by default flex direction is row. By default, you don't need to add it. So just by default, flex direction is row here. So let me just comment it out. But we should just have it at the back of our mind that once you make display flex, the flex direction is row. But now once we get, as long as we are under below 780 pixels for our screen's width, we want it to become column. What is column? From top to bottom. What is row? From left to right. That's just all you need to know. So now what happens? We are, once we start, let's refresh. Once we refresh, we start going blah, boom, boom. You can see, we increase back, boom. We use, so with this you can visualize how you can just, okay, once I'm on a small phone, I want to show this, I want to show that. You can even make some things hidden. We can come here and do, inside this place you will do dot container. What we now do is every p tag, I think we have a p tag in our container. Inside this thing means like pipe container, then inside every container, every p tag, I want to do display none. So I don't want it to show. So let's come here and refresh. Oh, we don't even have any we don't have any p tag here. Sorry. So let's use UL. I thought we had a p tag there. Let's use UL. So save, refresh. You can see now it's disappeared. But once we make it big, it appears back. So you can see how you can use it to make, okay, for desktop, I want this to show, I want that to show, I want it to be like this, to be like that. On laptops, I want it to be like this, I want it to be like that. On tablets, I want it to be like this. On phones. So that's the beauty of media queries. And all you need to do is just one line and just put in what you feel. You can even come to this place and set, okay, let me select this, uh, let's select this, and I come here and I say, okay, background should be red, and you visualize how what it looks like here immediately. So you can use this as your like type of debugger to get, okay, this is what this feels like at this point. Then you just, once you see something that works, you just bring it here, type it in, finish. So the only hard things about CSS and HTML is just remembering every little thing. Let's do small grid. Okay, let me just do grid to show you what it looks like. So with grid, uh, let's do let's create a new list. Let's do it outside. Or should we do it? Let's do it on the form. Yeah. No, let's not do it on the form. The form already looks like. Let's do another this thing. So a div. Let's have. Oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. Let's take our picture. I think this will visualize it better for us. So let's have 4 of it. Can press. I think I don't know what it is on Windows, but if you are on Mac, is Option Shift down to copy down, copy down. I think it should be Alt. Yes, it should be Alt on Windows. Alt Shift and your down key to copy down. So now we have. Let's give it a class of grid. So you can come here and select dot grid. So we have 4 items. You need to visualize it. What is happening here? What is happening here? I have 4 items on a big, very big screen. I want the 4 to show side by side, or I want them to show 2 by 2. Yes, 2 by 2. So you can just do display grid. Then we can do grid templates columns. We also do grid template rows. So now, instead of using autofill that this thing gave us, we want 2 by 2 instead. So you can see now, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. And what happened? If you notice, something has happened. Okay, they 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 had to fit to what we gave them, to the size we're giving them. They had to force themselves inside our size to get them. So this is what grid does for you. You can also do this with Flexbox if you know what you are doing too. So, but it's just great. You can see myself. I had to remember because I've been using a lot of Tailwind. So I had to use this AI to make me remember what's with how it looks like. Because on Tailwind, you can just do something like grid row 2, simple. And this will give you all this nonsense that is here. And you do for columns too, grid col 2, simple. So it's just to remember all these things that is the issue with CSS. Okay, there's one other thing we also have. By the time you start having items on top of each other, okay, we do not use anything absolute. Let's not get into all these ones now. So now let's move into what we have next, which is JavaScript. JavaScript is the main is what makes your website dynamic, what makes it unique, what gives it interaction, like what makes your user okay feel like yes, I'm using a website, I'm interacting with something. It's Java. Everything we have been doing now since, even though it's our bad CSS, at least all we can just do is see things happening. That's all. I can't come here and change this picture to this picture. I can't do anything. I can't edit what is here. The only place I can type in is here. Once I even press submit, nothing happens. It just refreshes the page. I can't change anything. So that's when, yes, JavaScript comes in. And also JavaScript also runs in your browser. So that's why there's no how you want to be a front-end web developer, whatever, that you will not use JavaScript. Even on the server itself, you have to use JavaScript to do one thing or the other. So JavaScript is very important. So in the console, once you open your developer tools, let me do it once. You can come into your view, developer, then developer tools. So are you go into console, or you right click, inspect. Some will show you open developer tools direct or open JavaScript console. So you have your console here. For me myself, I can come in and edit things actually. I can do documents. This is the DOM. This is what holds everything in your HTML, in your body. So it has everything in its hands. And I do dot query selector. I can now select this H1, and I can do dot text content, and I can set it into I world. Okay, sorry. Hey, God have mercy on my soul. Is equals to is not a function, so I just set the value to this. Simple. So you just make it into text context is equals to this. I can change it to anything. No way, no way. No way. So this document object is very important, and is what we use to do most of all the changes on the web page. So before we move on, let's see what a JavaScript file should look like and how to link it. So you can just come script.js, and we come into the index.html. So if there there's one thing about including script tags in your file. If your JavaScript is very heavy and you have things on your page you want to show your user before loading all the JavaScript, you want to put your script tag at the bottom. So you want it to be at the bottom. But if it's very light, you can put it at the top so it loads, and maybe it's very important to your page. So like maybe without JavaScript loading up, you don't want anything to show on your page. That's your choice. You can put it at the top. So it blocks the way it works. HTML works is a tree. So it starts at the top. It starts reading from the top. It reads this one. Once it reads this one, it reads the head. Once you start reading the head, it reads this, and it starts. And before it now finishes with the head, then it will now start reading the body. So by the time you put your script that is very heavy here, it will make sure to pass everything here. You should bundle everything, and should pass everything here before it can now move into your body. So you have to be careful with where you put your script tags. So that's why it's most advisable to put it at the bottom. So we can now come into it and do alert. Is a global. It comes in JavaScript. It's a global in JavaScript. So we can just pass in. Let's do hello world. So you can see once we refresh, the first thing that comes is this page says hello world. You can even notice if you notice something now. Once I refresh again, it pauses loading these images because this is the only part loaded. Same thing. Like, let me put the let's put the script tag. I think, but if we cut it and put it at the head, let's see what happens now. I refresh. You can see my page is empty because of this JavaScript is blocking everything. So if it's very heavy, to that it will block everything. It's until I press OK, then it starts loading everything. So that's why it's advisable to put your JavaScript. But some use cases you want to put it at the top, but most times it should be at the bottom. So also, yeah, you can also run JavaScript on your computer by by typing node here. If you open you need to install node here. Right? So you can download node, but I think I even opened it somewhere. So you download it for your specific browser, for your specific system. So Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever. Download it for your system. So you now once you just type in node, you can use it on your ear too. And if you have the file too, if I can do let's see, okay. I can do blah 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 all this. You can run your file. Alert is not defined, blah 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 error. Because alert is not on node. It only works in the browser with the VH engine runtime. So we can just come here, node. And now to create variables in JavaScript, you need variables to be able to store things and do different processes. So there is this old keyword var called var. Let me use something. So we are storing a string inside this var keyword, but people will tell you don't use this var keyword because it's global, and it will, let's say now I've defined this hello, I defined this inside a function. I only want it to work in that function, but with var makes it global, so it goes outside of my scope. And if I now have another variable called hello again in another function, they will conflict with each other because you can only create, if I try to do var again, it's an error. Somehow it's not even an error. but it should be an error. That's why var keyword, they tell you is not, you should not use it. You can see when I use let now, there's an error. So the one you use instead of var is let. You can see let allows me to, it doesn't allow me to redeclare that variable. And if you want to make a variable that you don't want to change, you use the const keyword. So now, num. I can't change num into another thing. If I do num is equals to 100, error. Well, I can do hello is equals to hello world again. No error. You can see the difference between this and this one is that, this one is that I added this let keyword again because I had declared it already. Once you've declared it already, you don't need to declare it. You can just reassign it. So I just reassigned it here to this string. Funny enough, you can't do this in most languages, only JavaScript. So I can do hello is equals to a number, no issue. In most languages, they will tell you, are you mad? Because you already made it a string. So these are data types that you use. It's already a string here, and it's saved in memory as a string. Why do you want to change string to number? But in JavaScript, you're a free man. So that's why I'm able to change it to number here now. So what next? We also have array data types. So we can do const is equals to array. To declare an array is this. They are actually called lists. They are not arrays. So when you see array in like in C or other languages, those ones are arrays. Because once I have to declare, before you can use an array, you have to give it the width. So how many items, the length, how many items do you want to be inside this array has to be predefined before you can use it. But in JavaScript, you're actually using something called a list. So that's why I can create an empty array, and I can do array.push, let's push in hello. And once I do, I have something inside already. But that's because it's a list, not actually an array. Also, we also have an object to store data too. Each of them have their different use cases. So for example now, I just have a list of numbers that I just want to keep. They are related in a way, but I don't want to add them or do something. I just want to keep them somewhere. So I can just use the list to keep them. And if I need to do anything with them, I can do what I want to do with them. But objects is different. Object is like key value pair. So I have maybe let's say cars. So I want to create. So I want to get different. I have this object is of let's use cars. My car. Be familiar with this. This is called camel casing, and it's accepted. I think you can also use. I mostly use only camel casing, but you can also use. Forgot what they call this. Hey, skipped my head. Well, camel casing is the way to go. It's the convention. My car is an object. So car one, or let's use my cars. English. Car one. This is the key. Car one. What is the name of the car? Tesla star. I can also have comma car two. Toyota. I've declared my cars. So if I do my car dot car one, I get Tesla Roadster. But if I want to get something from this array now, the only way I can do is this array and the index is zero-based index. So the first item is always 0. So if I do array of 0, I get this. If I do array dot push, I push another item. Let's push in I. So I do of 1, I get I. But if I do array dot length, we get 2 because there are 2 items inside this array. So that's the way it is. For my cars now, I can't get the length. The only thing I can get is each item. But I can do something like um, car, car 1 in my cars. Sorry. Uh, so you let's leave that alone. Now we can do the type of. Let's see what things we declared. Type of num is number. Type of what else do we declare? Array is an object. Arrays are stored as an object. They represent objects in this thing. So we have that's why we have methods on them. I can do dot array dot push dot pop. Pop removes an item from it. And I say I use a type of. If I do array dot pop, let's first get what our array is first. Array is alone. So if I do array dot pop, I don't need to pass in anything, it removes something from it. What does it remove? It has removed alone. So if I do array now, I get an empty string. I'll be an empty array, sorry. So that's just like the things you mostly need in this thing. Then there's the if else statements, if array, we can in JavaScript anything can be what's the word? We can make anything turn into true or false. I've forgotten the English. We can make anything. So for example, now let's do uh, if array is an empty array. So if array console dot log array is true, else array else console dot log false. Sorry, I missed the curly braces. Since we are typing on one line, we need to put the curly braces. So somehow it says array is truthy as an empty array. But if I do array, so an empty array will be truthy. If I do array dot length, it's false because array dot length is 0. So 0 is a false. Also, empty string is false. Let's do. Empty string is false. So let's do if empty string so you see we don't get anything. But if I do if not operator. This is our not operator. So it converts, if that thing is true, it changes it to false. If that thing is false, it will change it to true. So if I do this, we get true. So you can see. Also, we have equal and um, ah, why are the terms of these things are just running away from my head. But we can do things like um, 0 is equals to 0. That gives us true. Can do empty string. Can even do empty string is equal to false. We get true. Can do 0 is equal to true. We get false. Okay? Yeah, we get false. Do 0 equals to 0. We get true. Okay, I've done that before. See me. But we can do a string with letters is not equal to false. But somehow, let's try this now. An empty array is equals to false. So you can see what happened here. It's true here. So an empty array is equals to false. Sorry, is not equal to false, I mean. Same thing with an empty object. You can have empty objects too. So an empty object is also is not equal to false. What else can we compare? 1 is equal to true. We get false. Let me use the, so they are, okay, sorry. There are two different type of equal to operators. So this one, uh, this double equal just compares the values. So 1, are you a true value? Are you a true value? Okay, you guys. So for example, now 0 equals to 0. If I do 0 as a string, is 0 equals to 0 as a string, we get false. But if I do 0 double equals instead of triple equals to 0 as a string, we get true. Because this one does not check, okay, are they the same type? This one is a number, this one is a string. I don't give it. I don't care. I almost said something. I don't care. So it just does it. It just compares them. Are you equal to the same thing? Fine. True. So those are, there is also greater than 0, greater than -1. Yes, true. Is 0 is -1 less than -1? No. Is it equals to true? Triple equals true. So we have triple equal, and the most times when you want to compare two values are actually the same thing, you want to use a triple equals to make sure that they're actually the same thing, because JavaScript is very funny. Double equal, especially when that's why if you use this double equals, you are on a long thing. Because how can 1 be equal to 1 as a string? There are some other funny things that you can see from this double equals. So it's advisable that when you want to compare two things of the same type and the same thing, you make sure you use the triple equals. So let's go back to the browser. And where were we? So I showed you how you can select items. So now I think we have a little project that we can just play around with. Also, I did not show an A tag. So let's have a new HTML here. Count.html. So bang bang. Let's have count.css. So go into the MD file. So we can copy all this. Put it into our our account.html file. So this is just a simple div that has an h2 with two buttons, and we give them each of them an ID, so we can select them in JavaScript and do something with them. So let's copy the CSS also. Let me just create the CSS for me. Let's close all this index. Okay, I need the index. So we create a file. We could have done everything in a single file, but I want to show it's always better to like separate your stuffs. So we put this here to, let's close the ones we do not need. So now, I did not talk about the A tag. A tag is also very important, and it's actually the main building block of HTML. So just before after the form, let's do an A tag here. So an A tag takes in an href. Remember href from here? So we just put where do we want to go. That's what A tag does. I will take you somewhere, but tell me where you want to go. So let's take it to the account.html. Go to counts. Simple. And in our account.html, just also let's add our script tag count.js. Let's go to count.js, create a file, copy the JS file. So I think we touched on everything in the CSS. So text align center, put it to the center, padding. I'm not sure I talked about the box object model. Hey, this is anyhow. I think I talked about it. Yeah, I talked about it. So let's move on. So let's copy the JavaScript too. And paste it in. What does the JavaScript? Very simple. We set count to something using the let keyword. Let count is equals to 0. We've declared it at the top. So every other thing, since we declared it outside in the global scope, every other thing knows about it. If I declare it inside this place now, let's say I bring it inside here. This one does not know about count again. It doesn't know where count comes from. So, but so that these two functions can interact with, okay, that's also true. Let me talk about functions too. We did some functions here, not really. So you can create a function using the function keyword. So function, and your function name should be new, let's use new func. Then you pass in parentheses. Inside this parenthesis, you can put in your what you want to pass in, let's say name. And inside the function, you do console the log. Let's do hello plus name. You see, we didn't need to declare this name because as we pass it inside this function, as we declared it inside this function, we don't need to use let or var or anything or const. Once we've just passed it inside this function, it enters this. So now we have a new func. So I can do new func and pass in a name. Let's use, it has to be a string. So let's use James. We get hello James. Simple. But there are times that you don't want to use this function. There are two ways. Sometimes a callback function, which is one of the things you will work with very well in JavaScript. For example, this is a callback function. And instead of me having to come here and do function increments is equals to function count, okay, see it. So is equals to this is equal, instead of having to do this, then I'll pass it inside here. And I'll pass it inside here as counts. Instead of having to do this, we can just pass it directly without even declaring it. If I want to, without even declaring it, we can just pass it in there. So like this now, outside here, we don't know about this function. We don't know about the function. And once it does its work, it has disappeared. That's the end. So, and also, there are times that you want to, where's my terminal? We can use the const keyword to pass in a function too. That callback function. So I make it another func. So we use the arrow. So let's also even pass in the value. So let's pass in name too. So you can see the difference now. Here we pass the function keyword, then the function name, then the props that it will accept inside here. But here we are declaring it const, another func. This is the function name. Then what's the function props inside this parentheses? Normally, if I didn't want to use this parent, I can remove it. It's still valid. But just for readability, that's why we put it there. Or if you have more than one, by the time I have name and age. Name and age. So I can do this is not. I can do another, but I am age years old. So I can now call okay. I did not pass in a plus here. So I can call another func and pass in James, has to be a string, and a number. You can see that we've done this here. We are concatenating these strings, we are adding them to each other. But this age now is a number, so what should happen here? It works. That's JavaScript for you. It works. It doesn't mind. Normally, as this is a number, it should tell you, you can't add string and number together. But it's smart enough to just, okay, you are a number, let me just change it to a string. It just passes it into a string. We also have things like that. So if I do like 400 dots to string, it exists on sorry, let's do num. We have num, yeah, dot to string. It converts into string for me immediately. And I can also do pass int. No. It changes it back to number. There's also pass float. No. But you can't pass a string into this one. It has to be a number. Okay, you can also pass a string too, as far as you can change it. If not, it will give you any. If I do like ABC, not a number. But if I pass in num, it gets 200. Normally, a good language should give my like 200.0, but JavaScript just does its own. So that's that about functions too. So now let's save this, and go back and refresh. So we have go to count here. And once we get to count, we can just do plus, 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 minus, minus, minus. How does it work? Very simple. We get the element by the ID we declared here, this ID. We now add an event listener. Event listeners is just something on your browser that, okay, listens if an event should happen. Once you've added an event to, I'm sorry, you've added a listener to an element, and that event should happen, it triggers this function, this callback function. So I can put anything inside. I can come here and do console.log incremented. And once I come here, let's refresh. I go to my console. You can see incremented showing here. If I do, okay, I do not add the function too. So it's just listening for, okay, once a click event, we can also do mouse, I think mouse, no, mouse over should also work the same way. Let's refresh. You can see I'm not clicking. I'm not clicking. Let's use, so you people know that I'm not clicking because it might look like I'm like, I think it's mouse out or so. There are lots of them. That's why. So let's refresh. You can see I'm there. It did not change, but once I leave, it changes. I'm there. It did not. Nothing happens. Once I leave, it changes. I'm there. Nothing happens. So once I go like this, it just keeps changing. So there are different type of events that we can use, and that's why I've linked. I will drop this file, this markdown file. So there are a lot of these three websites. You can go to all of them and see there. The issue with JavaScript, CSS, and JavaScript in the browser, CSS and HTML is just there's a lot of things to just put in your head. But as far as you just understand the simple basics, you can come here and see a lot of APIs and all that, all the elements, what they can do, what attributes they have, what do they do. You can come to W3 schools for tutorials on any topic, if it's CSS tutorial, CSS buttons, everything. You can even do JavaScript, JSON, Node.js, React. We're also going to be having a React class if people are interested in it. So even free code camp too, you can learn to code for free, build projects, earn certifications, all that. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching. See you at the next one.